Hey, friends. Well, so I've talked your ear off recently about this podcast that I listened to the other day, Tim Ferriss's podcast with Arthur C. Brooks as his guest, and I listened to it again. And it was a 2 hour and 40-minute podcast, and I listened to it twice. That's like an entire audiobook. So you know, I was either I'm crazy like that, or this really struck me. And there's something that I periodically I evaluate what I'm doing with this post, right? And especially as I now click up towards 1,000 days of doing this, 1,000 days in a row without missing a single day, I start to think, what is this investment all about? And I've listed numerous benefits to my life over the period of time that I've been doing this. I mean, I feel like I keep recognizing new ones and the same old ones. The primary one being putting language to things makes us conscious in a new way. I always reference Brene Brown and her web series, or maybe it was a Netflix series, Atlas of the Heart, where she talks about, she has, I think it's like 52 different emotions that she talks about on that over the course of 6 episodes. And her whole point is, if we don't define in language and then try to get an impression by sort of empathetically resonating with examples of these emotions and or taking using hypothetical situations or real situations to sort of like evoke these emotions and then understand what it is we're feeling and sort of do that consciously. If we don't do that, then we dumb down our ability to feel emotions overall. We actually just start taking what are quite discrete and subtle and definable emotions and mashing them all into a handful of emotional sort of pots, because we don't really take the time to be conscious of all the different nuances and details of our feelings. So we feel less, and we feel less consciously. This post, for me, is like, I have impressions and ideas. I can do 5 of these posts a day. I have things coming up in my mind every day. And but if I don't actually take the time to sit down and start my camera and speak about them, actually consciously express, which involves a kind of self-interrogation, reflecting on what do I actually think, and a lot of times I speak my way to my insight over the course of the post itself. So that's kind of exhibit A of why this post is so important to me. But I do keep evaluating, and I do keep coming back to the question, will I do this forever? I don't know. Is 1,000 days in a row enough? Am I ready for a new practice? I don't know. But this podcast that I listened to, I believe I mentioned this the last time I spoke about the podcast, which was, I think, 2 days ago, and I did like a 26-minute post, which if you heard that, you saw my longest post ever. But I listened to it again because I drove up to Santa Fe yesterday, so I had kind of 2 hours in the car. That pretty much got me most of the way through the podcast. One thing that Arthur Brooks talks about is that in any anything we're trying to learn, whether it's a new skill, a new habit, a new perspective, whatever it is, there are 3 steps involved. The first is understand. So we have to do some work to understand. We have to study. We have to inform ourselves. Second step is practice. You have to put that into practice somehow. If it's changing a habit, you got to do the new habit. If it's learning a skill, you got to practice the new skill. And then the third element, which is not necessarily obvious, is teach or share. And he says a lot of people don't take that step, and it means that our learning remains incomplete, because it's not until we've shared something, put it out there, talked about it with someone, imparted the information that we've received after practicing it, right? We can't teach it or share it without practicing it. You got to do the first 2 steps. But that third step is the one that really anchors it, that really just has to settle into our core in a way. And I thought of this post as I was listening to that part of the podcast again today on my drive down. I thought, my original intention with this post was that I felt like I was having insights, and that I stood to gain something by sharing them rather than just letting them be for me. And in some ways, it's probably more things that I can realistically practice. I'm not always imparting something or I'm teaching something that is a practice of my life. Although I would actually say, even as I say that, I'm pretty sure that most of the time it is. Most of the time, either I'm sharing enthusiasm about a new insight that I've had or something that has changed my thinking, I'm expressing it sort of in the understanding phase, kind of still in phase 1. But a lot of times it's out of my practice. It's from the understanding into my practice, and then out of my practice is where something will pop up, and I'll have the impulse to do a post. I'll write it down, or I'll do a little voice memo and say, this is what my post for today or tomorrow is going to be on. And so that is just another affirmation of what this process is about for me, and why I think it's so valuable. And it's like every once in a while I feel like something is giving language, or it's almost like I have this intuitive grasp of what is going on, why I'm doing something, but then something or someone will come along and clarify for me what's put it into language for me, give me a concept. And so if I think about this post as one of the sharing components in my own practice, all of a sudden it's like, well, why would I ever stop? Why would I ever stop doing that? I have this opportunity. I have a practice of the sharing already. Why would I stop? So that's where that took me today. I don't know if this will be the practice forever. I don't know if this is the only or even the best way to share what I know and to create that adding value to the lives of others element. There may be things I could do that would be different, that would be, feel better, but in the absence of those things kind of crowding out the time or the energy for this practice, this is a pretty good start. So it's also why I appreciate you. I appreciate people who take this in, and especially people who respond and comment, because all of a sudden I recognize that this is not just a an empty, I'm not saying this into space. I'm saying this is landing. It's making a difference in people's lives. It's creating the ripple effect that I would hope my own growth would find an avenue to trigger and to expand into the world. So that's where I'm at, folks. I appreciate you. And, you know, to the extent that you're on this journey with me, you have a profound effect on my own growth in that way. So thank you. I appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.